It occurred to me the other day that literally the only time I've made any real progress in my business has been when I've done a specific type of work. And really, I think the reason a lot of people are stuck and like not making progress in their life or in their business is because they don't spend any time doing this type of work. So I'm gonna try to explain what it is and how you can do more of it yourself. So if you haven't seen me here before, I am the founder of OMNI², which is a natural all-in-one health and sort of performance supplement. But it only has nutrient-dense whole food, so beef organs, colostrum, organic berries, stuff like that. It's super cool. It really works. And so far, we have got up to about 400,000 in run rate in the first 6 months. And so yeah, I've made some progress. I'm not nearly satisfied, but I've done enough to notice that what I'm about to tell you is really important, and it's been, again, pretty much the only real contributor to our tiny success so far. It's honestly kind of hard to define what this type of work is. The only way I can really describe it is just saying hard work. And it's really, really important to distinguish this from, you know, the cliche advice that people always give you about like working hard. Obviously, as an entrepreneur, you need to work hard. That's the entry ticket, you know. But working hard and hard work is not the same thing. Hard work means actively solving a difficult and valuable problem. Sometimes part of that can be sitting in front of your laptop for 12 hours a day, you know. That can be necessary sometimes. Sometimes you really just need to think for a long time or talk to the right people. Or sometimes it's about doing like 1,000 cold calls. It can be all of that, but there's like a deeper thing that comes back to this, like actively solving the hard, important, valuable problem. And so there's a macro and a micro to this. The macro part is basically what every successful company is. If you think about like what Elon Musk is doing with or has done with Tesla, he solved the problem of making like electric driving accessible, sexy, all of that. Steve Jobs, you know, basically created a device that powers people's creativity, work. That's why those things are valuable, because they solved a very, very big problem for a lot of people. But the micro level of this is actually what's more important, because that is how these larger macro problems get solved, like how you actually get there over years and years and years. And I think most of us spend so much of our time not doing that type of work. One of the clearest examples in my mind that like I hold on to as an anchor for like what is hard work, and when am I doing it, when am I not doing it, is when, before I started this company, like obviously my company is basically about one product, like our hero product. That's kind of the whole brand and company revolves around this one product. And so in a sense, the product is the business. And so before I started, I only had this vague idea of the formulation of the product. Like I knew kind of what it was as an idea, but I had no idea about the actual specifics, right? And so what I did was I basically took more than 2 months and I sat down every morning for multiple hours and I just researched every single ingredient that I had in mind. Like I had started with like 70 different ingredients that were already like kind of sort of filtered out from all of my experience in nutrition and natural health and stuff. And then I just spent multiple hours every day researching, like deeply researching each ingredient, making decisions on like if they qualified or not, so to speak. And I just did that every day. I also talked to a bunch of experts and stuff. Just like actively spent the focused hours doing that work. And then after about like a bit more than two months, I had this amazing formula that's like literally responsible for the success that we've had so far. And I actually had the specifics, you know, like I had every single ingredient. I had like research and background on every single ingredient and why they were in there, the exact amount and why, all of this stuff. And so I could never have gotten there without all of those hours of focused, hard work. So what's an example of not doing the hard work? For me, since I'm like a designer, I love design. I'm like, yeah, it's like my almost therapy sometimes for me. What I tend to do when I get lazy and like I'm tired or like I can't deal with the hard work, I tend to like go and tinker with our website, with our landing pages and stuff like that. And it feels super productive, but actually it's like, it can actually be counterproductive because I'm not measuring the changes that I'm making and stuff like that. So I may actually be worsening our results. Like I might have just been better off not doing anything with that time. So that's kind of how important hard work is and how dangerous it is to not spend your time doing hard work. And so literally hard work is one-to-one correlated with progress, I would say. So the more of your time you spend doing the hard work, the more and faster progress you will make, and vice versa.
Okay.
Sleeping. That's cool. So how do you make sure that how do you sort of practice this muscle, and how do you make sure that you do more and more of this type of hard work? To me, there are two parts to this. One is what I call the one thing. There's a book called The One Thing as well. And in short, it's about identifying the one thing that would make everything else you're sort of thinking about doing either easier or unnecessary, and sort of thinking about that on a hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. Like, what is the one thing that I can do that if I got it done, everything else is almost like redundant or so much easier, you know? Because like if you don't know what to work on, yeah, you have to know what the hard work is, or like what's worth doing. And Alex Hormozi talks about this a lot too, where he says that at any given time, there is really only one constraint to your business. This can be kind of confusing sometimes. I think like it feels like sometimes you have two constraints, but if you really think hard and deep about it, you end up like, actually it's one constraint. That's sometimes like, if you solve that, then yes, maybe the other thing will become a constraint pretty fast or pretty soon. But yeah, you really only have one thing that you need to be, that's the highest priority out of everything. So that's one thing. And then honestly, the second part to it is really working your discipline muscle, because to me, the opposite of hard work is like anything that's sort of comfortable for you mentally to do. And I mean, sometimes I do this deliberately because I'm like truly too tired to do the hard work. So for instance, maybe at night I will save our customer support tickets and stuff like that. I'm still answering those, by the way. I will save those until nighttime because like I know I'll be too tired to do any good hard work anyway. So I'll just like focus on the stuff that's like pretty mentally easy to do. But generally, you really need to avoid any type of work, at least during like prime work hours, that's comfortable. That's like where you feel like you can just sort of chill and be lazy with your mind. And the cool part is if you start to work this muscle and you get better at like locking into this hard, mentally challenging work, I've found that it's also the best and fastest way to get into sort of the zone, or get into the flow state, if you know what that is. So even if it feels hard, almost like a workout, like sometimes we don't want to go do the workout, we could kind of avoid it. but then as soon as you go out and like do a run or something, it feels kind of awesome. It's the same thing here, like you're avoiding the hard work, but as soon as you do it, it feels great and you get into flow, and like you have a very satisfying work session. So those two things are kind of what I think about, and I'm far from perfect. This is like probably actually the main thing that I'm working on for myself, is to just spend more of my time doing hard work. So I hope this was helpful. If you want to get more of this, I'm gonna keep uploading every week now, so subscribe and yeah, you'll see my next video. How cool is this, by the way? It's like a natural salt production. Sea salt. It's very sick.